I just took the oil fill plug off and tipped the engine on its side to drain the oil out of this one. I mean, wasn't bolted on, so that was easy enough to do. You can see that oil's pretty clean, and that had a couple seasons of mowing up north, so you can tell it's not used a terrible lot, but when we did use it up there. But anyway, I got to get this off too, so I can clean this, so this cover will slide off, so I can change that gasket, and I'm going to change that seal. That seal's probably the original one. See how it's oily in here, but it's oily right there. I think that's the oil leak there too. Yeah, the gas in this thing's stinking up the whole garage, so we got to get it out now. Fortunately, there wasn't a lot of gas in it, but what is in it, pretty nasty. Ugh. Yeah, that's foul. I'm going to put a little lacquer thinner in the tank and swish it around and then dump it in that pan. I got to take the muffler off the paint all in here and paint bead blast that, and so I can just undo these bolts, and I think I'm going to take that breather off and just reseal it, just because, it's a part, why not? I'm going to have to open up the garage here or something. This is nasty. Spilled it all over the tank, but that's okay. It'll clean that crud off. It's going to get all repainted, so I don't care if a little lacquer thinner spills on it. It's all going to get cleaned up with some anyway eventually. But I did put some in the fuel. You can see the fuel tank. I don't know if you can or not, but the inside of the fuel tank on this engine is clean. Let's dump this hideous stuff, this lacquer thinner out. Hopefully that gets all the hideous gas out of the tank. Alright, let me dispose of this nastiness here, and then I'll blow out the gas tank. The carburetor on this thing's adjusted really good. This thing runs fantastic, so I'm just going to take the whole adjusting screw assembly out without turning the screw, so I don't have to readjust it. It's actually still nice and clean, but that's going to get a little spray. I'm going to take the throttle out too. I think you put them all the way to idle and then they lift out. Yeah, that needs you can see that needs a good cleaning in there. This is the throttle. So we'll give all that a good cleaning too, and when I spray in here, it should come out in that. Should spray into there. It'll go into the tank and into there, into the fuel tank. Let me see if I can get the camera to show in there. But I got to get this thing in that. Yeah, it's just all clogged up. I may have to take the carburetor off to get it. Yeah, that's just all totally clogged up. That still stinks. I had to open up the garage and turn on the ventilator. This stinks so bad. Alright, that's probably got all the old fuel out of it. Yeah, I tried tapping it off with the bolt in there, and I tried different things, and the puller is the only way this thing's going to come off. So I just got it in here. It's moving on the shaft. See how it's, you can see a little bit maybe, but it is coming off. It's just really on there. So just plug away at it, hopefully get it off here. This is a puller I bought in an estate sale. This thing's awesome. I'm going to have to back it off so I can move that bolt out a little bit. It's about the bottom on the bolt. In fact, it has bottomed on the bolt, so I got to back the bolt out. Yeah, that thing's in there. Put a big divot in the bolt. I threaded it in quite a ways so I wouldn't bugger up the threads, you know, when I was hitting it. So I didn't want to. I guess I'm just going to have a divot in the bolt there. I'll just try and keep it in the same spot, and then I'll just grind it out. Oh, it looks like I got to loosen the bolt up more. I'm surprised. Oh, it's still on there. You can see it's still on probably about half the distance it's got to come off, so I may have to get a longer bolt, because I think that bolt is about to come out of the crankshaft. You can tighten this thing up on what you're pulling. That's what I like about it. So see how it stays on there? I love this puller. Alright, yeah, I'm going to have to, I'll thread it in a few, well, I'm just going to get a longer bolt because I do not want to mess the threads up. And if you're only pushing with a couple threads in, there's a good chance you're going to mess them up. Maybe I'll find a bolt that just falls down in there, you know, a smaller thread. I found a longer one. It was quite long, and it only came to about here, so this is a really long bolt. I just unthreaded this out of here to dropped it right straight through, so that was easy enough to do. So hopefully this one will be enough to get that pulley the rest of the way off, or that blade. They call those a blade clutch. And there we go. All right, now I can clean that. Seeing I think the journal and the crank, this is the same size, so I got to clean this all up. I got to get that key. I'll just take a hammer and a punch and knock the key out, and then I'll take some 80 grit and clean that crank up so that this cover will slide off without damaging the bearing or anything. I'll just show this to you if you're into these old mowers. See how that's a rubber piece on this part of the clutch that attaches the engine. Then the blade goes on there, and then this is a rubber piece, and that goes on there, and the blade would be in between there. And then this washer, and then this washer, and then this bolt, and that's what holds the blade to the engine. Yeah, that's why it's got a big hole in the center of the blade to mount it, and that's why I can't find a replacement blade for this mower, so I just stay with the original blade. I've been using that same blade since I've had it. It's cold out here. The furnace is running because I have the back door open to let that nasty varnish gas smell out. Alright, let me just clean this up enough to, I'll probably eventually do it like that, but I'm going to get the heavy scale off going this way. These cranks don't take much to clean up. They're pretty substantial, and they clean up pretty easy. Alright, you get the picture of how I'm going to clean the crank up. I'm going to do that until it's all clean, then we'll pull this cover. Oil, I'll wipe it off. I already blew it off with compressed air. Then I'm going to oil it, wipe the oil around on it really good, so when I slide I don't want dirt on it, so I'm just trying to make sure the oil, see how even though I blew it off with compressed air, it's still, the oil is pulling the dirt out. But you put oil on it so you're not pulling your bearing over a dry shaft. I don't want to score the bushing in the engine. So the bolts are just totally encrusted in grease. So I'll just scrape it away with a screwdriver, the grease away from it, so I can get my socket on it. That was the only one that was really encrusted. That's all the bolts are out. I'm going to put some oil on this. Then we're going to tap the base and hopefully it comes off. Alright, that's nice and oiled up. I wonder if the camshaft lobes are on a valve. Sometimes that makes it harder to pop them off. Put it up on its compression stroke, which I think it's right there right now. That feels like the compression stroke, so I just can't hit it over here because of the fuel tank. I guess I should take the carburetor off. That'd just make life easier. This is just ultra. Probably should take the muffler off. Be easier to take the carburetor off. There's a lock nut on here. You gotta loosen them up, otherwise you'll never get the muffler off. And it also holds that, I guess. Let's see if I can get a... Might need a pipe wrench, but might need to take carburetor. Oh, well, there it goes. The muffler and the heat shield, which now I can bead blast and paint separately. I won't paint the muffler. I think I'll just leave that alone. Now the carburetor. Yeah, it's oily in there from being tipped over and stored in funny angles, and this will save damaging the carburetor. I don't want to, if I don't know if I have any more of these gaskets, so I'll have to look. I'm going to try and save this one. I'm surprised how easy this thing's coming apart. Usually things are more stuck on these old engines. Take that governor spring off carefully there. Hooking right on the edge. There it goes. Alright, carburetor's off, muffler's off. That'll make life a little easier. I'll have to get this off the... there. Set that with the gas tank so I don't lose it. Yeah, I don't think the breather is leaking. But I think I'm going to take it off and put a new gasket on, seeing it's there, you know what I mean? And then this plate's missing on the other engine and it's bent on this one, so I'm going to straighten it out while it's all apart. Alright, let's see if we can tap this thing off now. It's got to slide over this crank all the way. That's pretty darn clean. I'm impressed. This is the gasket that's leaking, and I'm not gonna take that gasket off until I compare it to the new one to make sure it's exactly the same size. Otherwise we're going to be putting sealer on that one and reusing it. Yeah, the inside of the engine is super nice and clean. Wow. I didn't expect that. Yeah, that is nice. I'm not going to take any of it apart because, like I say, the thing ran excellent. Absolutely ran like a clock. This is where the gasket leaked, right in here. So, and this is the part I got to straighten. You can see how it's a little bent there. And that's, like I say, missing on the other one, so I'll take that one off to straighten it. I'll just trace it out on some paper and make a new one for the other engine. Just flat sheet metal. Well, it wasn't even tight too. Simple as that. Wow. Yeah, it needs cleaning too. We'll get it all straightened up and I'll clean it up and hammer it out straight. We'll clean everything up. After I get the base gasket back in, I'll take the blower housing and stuff off. We'll put this thing in the parts washer and clean it up, and I'm going to put the base in the parts washer too before I put it back on. That is the correct gasket. Look at that. The oil and grease, I guess, kept it from rusting. We'll get a prime up. I think I'll put this back together and then paint it. Another thing I got to do is, my dad said that when this got backed into it, smashed this, and he bumped the blower housing back out. And the recoil rope isn't that long, so I'm going to take it apart and put a new longer recoil rope in it, and then I can clean this all up to paint. One thing I got to do though is, because when this was hit, it broke the flywheel. And I just now noticed it. So this is the part that got broke off, and it goes in there. So I think we'll use some of that panel adhesive and try and get it back in there and glue that in. And it's not the original flywheel. I have the original flywheel magneto up in the attic. The points are under this cover, and there's a little nylon rod that drives the points, and it would leak oil around that nylon rod. I replaced the rod, and it still would seep, and every couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I'd have to pull a flywheel and clean the oil out of the points. So I just robbed the flywheel and a magnetron off of a newer engine and threw it on here. And I did save the original coil and the original flywheel, so I could always take that cover off, clean the points up really good, clean all the oil out of there and put it back together and the original stuff. But I think we'll just put some panel adhesive on this. This is damage from when it got backed into. My dad was so upset, and he took the housing off after it happened and straightened it just to make sure the engine was still good, and he said it started right back up, and he actually finished a little bit of mowing he had to do with the cracked deck, with the busted deck. But I've never run it since it's been busted, so it's been a few years now, so hopefully we can get everything squared away on it. Look at how the quality of that original oil seal. Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore. The new one's in. It was no big deal, just popped the old one out. I put red Loctite around the outside edge of it before I drove it into the bore. So I'm going to oil that, the cam bearing. I cleaned the inside of this out, so I'll fill the engine with oil when I'm done and tip it all over to get slash oil around. But I'm going to put oil in that and oil on this, and there, oil this whole shaft again, and just kind of so it all goes together. And then I can start. Put this whole thing in the parts washer and cleaned it a bit. But I'm going to get this on, then I'll fix this. I just don't want to get dirt in there, so I just want to get that sealed back up. So let me get some oil on things. I oil up the seal all in there, the crank. Make sure there's no burrs up here. That's all nice and smooth. Put oil on the cam bearing there. I'm going to put some oil in here where the cam runs. And smear oil on these pins. I'm not putting any sealer on the gasket. These gaskets generally don't need it. They're all the same size, same length and everything. There's nothing different about them. So we'll get these in and torqued down, and then I'll fix that breather. 90 inch-pounds, and I went around and did them in a kind of a pattern. Now I'm just going to go around in a circle just to make sure they're all 90 inch-pounds. There we go, all buttoned up. Well, I think I'm going to pop the flywheel off because oil keeps coming out of that points cover every time I tip the engine, so I'm going to clean that out too, and I might put a little plug in that, take the points and condenser out, put a little plug in that hole, and while the flywheel's off I'll fix it. I suppose I could find another one on you know, modern. This is a newer, you know, flywheel. The old flywheel won't work the magnetron, so that's why I put a different flywheel. But like I say, I'll show you. I'll get it out of the attic of the garage sometime before I put this together and show you the difference of the coil and the flywheel. Alright, I get my special tool out to get that off. This is the special tool, and do not use an impact on these. You'll snap those ears off if you do. Just use a wrench. This is off, and this was the locking thing underneath it. This was pre-beveled washer, and I think I'm probably going to use a brass hammer and just hold the crank and see if I can get. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. Whoops, whoops. I got the flywheel off. Now you can see the chunk missing out of it. And I may have one of these around somewhere. I'll look. If not, I'll glue this piece back in with some panel adhesive. And now we can get the points cover off. You can see the stuff's been running out of it and down the engine. That thing must be full. Whoops. Yeah, that's just the parts washer fluid that's in there. It's not oil. Alright, so that's all it was running out. You can see it kind of right in there. So we'll dump that out. Give that a quick clean out too. This tube has a little check ball in the end and it's stuck. It's all gummed up from having gas in it for a few years without being used. So I'm using this stuff right here to try and free it up. I tried lacquer thinner and I tried a little compressed air to blow through there. Yeah, that's just really stuck, so I'm just kind of feeding a little bit into that. And on that other end, the main jet is all clear, and the adjusting screw and everything's all nice and clean. So it's just that pickup tube, I think, that's plugged up. So we'll get that. I'll let that sit overnight with power tune on it, and hopefully tomorrow it'll start freeing up. In the meantime, I'm gonna throw the gas tank in the bead blast cabinet, seeing it's off the carburetor. Went through my parts hoard and found a breather gasket, so I'm going to change that too. I cleaned out in there, and yeah, that was definitely, this gasket just fell apart. I mean, it's so brittle and old. So that probably was leaking oil too. So we'll get all that fixed up nice. I'm going to just squirt a little oil on those valve stems because I cleaned that out in there with a little brake clean. These holes back a little. I don't know if it shows up in the video or not, but they're a little pushed in and it won't tighten around the edges like that. So you got to peen them back, then it tightens all the way up, all the way around. Gently. Doesn't take much. Might use a little punch because I don't think I'm getting right to the very edge, but you get the picture of what I'm doing. Fixed. All good now. So hopefully there's no oil leaks on the engine. With the cracked flywheel, and this has, I think, the original condenser in it. I don't know, maybe you Briggs guys know, but there is stampings on it, and it's got a Briggs logo way down on the bottom there. Figured as long as the tank was separated from the carburetor, I'd bead blast it. So I just put the screws back in, some tape over that, and then I put some tape. I don't want to set that on the bench because it's oily. I'll keep it oiled. But I put some tape in here And I might prime this up right now with some zinc chromate so it doesn't surface rust. And while I was bead blasting, I did that little thing for the muffler too. This is the original Flywheel. It has a 56 on it, so maybe this was a 1956 this mower. Does that show up in there? The receipt, it's really hard to tell. It looks like 55. You know, it's really old. It's handwritten, one of those old, you know, on the paper receipts they used to write in stores back in the day. And, you know, it's kind of faded and worn and beat up, and so it might be a 56. I was under the understanding it was a 55, but could be a 56. But yeah, it needs a good cleaning up. And then the coil, I don't know, I might have to get my coil tester out. Looks like it suffered some damage over the years from kicking around. I don't know if this shows up or not, but there's a little hole here where the wire goes through to the condenser from the coil. And this was bolted to the engine like so. This was still on top, but this was underneath. And that's kind of where the wire was routed that went into there. So, and that was on there. This corner was almost right to here. And I think that just helped protect the coil from the heat of the engine. And the carburetor, I'm starting to get, it's almost like a blue goo coming out of the end of that. And so I think that is just tube, or that check ball down in there where the gas has been in it for a few years has just become so hard in there, and this stuff will soften it up. Letting this stuff soak in the carburetor overnight, you know, in this pickup tube, got it cleared out. So that is totally clear. That was completely plugged. I even tried to blow compressed air through it, but try not to get this stuff on my camera, but you can clearly see it come out in here. So that is all clear now. I'm going to put the main jet and the adjusting screw back in and get this thing together so it can go back on the tank. I think originally this carburetor was painted. You can see remnants of black paint on it. So I'm going to assume it was painted. I remember it was painted when I got it. Over the years of giving it a quick clean now and then, the paint has come off, but that was black with the rest of the engine, so that's what it's going to be. And I did, I don't know if I think I showed this, but the fuel tank is all bead blasted and primed. And I got to go see if I have some more tank to carburetor gaskets for these old engines. Somewhere around I got a ton of parts for these old engines, and I'm going to go see if I have, I think there's supposed to be 2 gaskets between the tank and the carburetor together. So I'm going to go see if I can find some. But anyway, there we go. The carburetor's all clean now. I also decided to just stick with the magnetron. I did gap the points to 20 thousandths and put the cover on, but that gouge, yeah, I don't think this, I'll check the coil when I get a chance. I'll charge up my thing. But you know, this coil, I'll keep the coil and the flywheel original parts of this engine. But I think I'm going to, you know, it runs perfect with what's on it. There you can see the jets in there. And then I'll just put this in, and I never changed the mixture screw, so it should be adjusted perfectly when I crank it up. I shouldn't have to readjust the carburetor. Alright, let me get a little wrench and tighten that down. The carburetor's basically done. Couldn't get much simpler than these. Just a little suction feed carburetor. The newer ones, you know, they have that diaphragm here. That's a fuel pump because they put deeper tanks, so they pump the gas. All that diaphragm would do is pump the gas up into a little bowl in the bottom of the tank that a shorter pickup tube would go in, so it could pick up suction, because when they're really long, it doesn't have enough suction to draw the gas when the tank gets low. So that's why they put that little fuel pump on the suction carburetors. He blasted the air cleaner, glued the flywheel, and yeah, I bead blasted this too. So these are ready for paint. I got to get this apart and bead blasted, and this all sanded out. Yeah, still got a fair amount to do, but it's we're getting there. Yep, bead blasted that too. Figured why not? It's primed up, ready for paint. as I'm going around cleaning up the bits and pieces for this old engine, this starter ratchet is so full of crud, I wonder it would engage. I mean, these little balls, centrifugal force holds them out there, and when the engine stops, they fall down. Then this little dog catches the ball, and that's what makes the starter. See how it's caught? And then when centrifugal force keeps them out. Well, with all that crud in there, I'm really flabbergasted that the balls didn't stick out here and that the starter didn't catch, and the starter caught fine. Anyway, I'm going to clean this all up. I'm cleaning all the bits and pieces up, and then I'll sand the motor out another day, but I'm going to take the blower housing apart. These are all the fasteners for the blower housing and the screen, which I think I be blasted and painted. Yeah, I got parts. I think I showed some of these. This video's over a few days, so maybe even longer. But anyway, I don't know what I videoed and what I didn't. So anyway, I am taking this apart now, and I know I didn't video this, so that's why I was showing that. So I'm just cleaning everything up so that when this thing goes together, it's, you know, all in perfect working order. That's what it should look like. Nice and clean. And then this fiber washer sits here, and I'm going to put a drop of oil on this fiber washer. No grease in the starter ratchet. You want to put them together clean. So I'll put a little oil on that, and then notice there's a bushing in there, and I'll oil that when I put it together. I'll oil the crankshaft, but this sits here, you know, so it can kind of do that. I already wiped these ball bearing things off. Clean this up so you can kind of see how it goes together, and then this little thing goes on. And this little thing goes on there. And then we got a starter ratchet. You can see when it's turning it is when it's catching. So there we go. We got the starter ratchet all rebuilt. We got a bunch of little parts ready to paint, so I'm just going to shoot some paint on them, and then all I got is the engine block and the blower housing. So let's get this thing looking good. Alright, there's one coat. We'll go get the rest of the components and blow some paint on them. This is blade mounting hardware here. This is a heat shield for the muffler. So, you know, it's just easier to paint this stuff now and then paint the engine. Just saves running in and out with a bunch of pieces when I'm trying to paint the engine. Plus there's no bugs in the air today. It's kind of cool. Alright, one coat on that. I'm just putting the first coat on everything, then I'll go around and get everything with the second coat in about 10-15 minutes. This is the blade clutch, part that mounts the blade to the engine. Has some a CY50 cast into it right there. I don't know if that shows up in the video or not. Second and final coat on this. I don't want the paint real heavy on it, and you know, you can see a few little pits from where it was rusted, but you know, it's a lawnmower. I'm not going to Bondo or filler it or anything. It'll be just fine. That'll look perfect. It's hard to turn it when my fingers are all sticky with paint. That looks pretty good. That's the underside of it, and I want to get a paint on it so it doesn't rust. The heat shield for the muffler. Yeah, there's pits in that too, but you know, it's a heat shield and that's just the way they are. That's gonna look good though. This whole mower is gonna look fantastic when I'm done. Look better than new. That looks pretty darn good. The debris screen, both sides painted. Alright, I'm getting a lot of this done. I gotta get the paint off the black assembly and the blower housing, which I'm going to take apart so I can put a new longer rope in it, and then when I bead blast it, it won't have grit up in the recoil spring. And so another day I'll work on this and cleaning this up, and everything else, the carburetor I'll bolt back on to paint the engine, and then I'll just take it back off to put the tank on or loosen. Well, I might be able to put the tank on without taking the carburetor back off. But I did paint the gas tank, and whoops, and I assembled the handles for the, yeah, they came out really nice. And so we're moving along. Once we get this finished up, it's going to be pretty much all ready to put back together and be done. Then I can, tomorrow I'm hopefully going to get some more glass beads. I got to run up that way, and we'll get the other mower deck blasted clean so I can work on the other one. But I've come to the conclusion, I think this is a 1956, but the receipt, it's like I say, it's old handwritten, you know, on those things you peel off, carbon copy things. And it was really hard to tell, but the Flywheel shows that it's a 56. But I'm not going to change the title on the videos because then I have to go back and edit all the other ones. It's just not worth it. So I'll leave it as 55, seeing that's what I believe the receipt says. But I'll have to dig it out, hunt it up, and find it. And maybe get a little video of that too when I find it. But yeah, it's definitely moving along. So alright, I'm going to end this video here, and then I'll pick up when I paint the engine, clean the engine up and paint it, and put it back together. Will be another video. So this will be maybe a few more parts on this mower restoration. And with the other mower, probably another 4 or 5. But anyway, this is it for this video. If you like the video, definitely hit the like button. If you want to see this mower finished up, subscribe to my channel by hitting that 348 engine icon that pops up there. And thank you for watching my videos.